we cannot start planning for a crisis during a crisis.
You got to know ahead of time. So that's why we're giving you guys step by step what we're going to go through today. And so step one.
Hi everyone, I'm Michelle. I'm the Vice President of Media Minefield.
And I'm Amy, the Services Manager here at Media Minefield. And we're going to be talking today about how to handle the first 24 hours of a PR crisis step by step. We know that every hour matters at a time like this. We've even seen in a recent survey that 84% of consumers will say that speed matters and changes their perception of how someone is dealing with a crisis. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We want to give you a step-by-step action plan so we know what to do.
That's exactly right. And here's where it all starts. Please have a crisis plan that you have already thought through who your team is, who's involved, who are you calling, who are you bringing in. We cannot start planning for a crisis during a crisis.
You got to know ahead of time. So that's why we're giving you guys step by step what we're going to go through today. And so step one, alert that team.
It's the perfect plan, right?
Yep.
You have a team and then you alert them.
Yep. And when you're alerting them, you want to know how. So first, who's on that team? Is it executives? Are they the people that are on your communications team? Or is it the agency of record that you're working with through a crisis? Make sure that you know who it is. And then figure out how you're going to be alerting them, whether it's texting, calling, have that action plan for really the communication tree of how they're going to be alerted that something's going on.
Yes. And after hours. Don't forget to think about after hours. As much as we would love for crises to happen Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, that's not the way it happens. In fact, I think Amy and I can attest that most crises happen at the worst times possible. Friday night, Saturday morning. I mean, when you are not expecting it, that's when it's going to pop up. So that's why it's really important that you know, how do I reach people like urgently in crisis? And as an organization that has a crisis team and does this for clients, we have our own internal system for how we're getting in touch with one another when a crisis pops up that inevitably is going to be at the worst time. So once we alert the team, we move on to step two. We're going to assess the situation. What this means is we want to find out as much information as we possibly can about what is going on at that time. So what do you know from where it happened, who's involved, who knows that this is going on? All of that really matters. You try to gather as much information as you possibly can in that initial time period. Sometimes that means that you've got to make some calls outside of your core crisis team to gather that information.
Exactly. It's really like the 5 W's, the who, what, when, where, why, potentially the how, and then moving on from that, that is really will take you into those next steps we're going to get to, but you can't do any of that without assessing the situation and having a full picture of what's going on, who's involved, when did it happen. All of that sort of stuff will help you figure out what you're going to need to do next. Which takes us to step 3, which is to determine the next steps. You can't determine the next steps without assessing the risk. So you've assessed the situation, now figure out the risk. Is it a low risk situation? Maybe it was a comment someone left or an isolated situation. Maybe media has just started reaching out. Low risk could change how you're going to go from there. Medium risk could be it's starting to bubble up. People are getting interested, reaching out. And then of course, high risk is going to be the most intense crisis situation. Local, national media are picking it up. It's going viral, something like that. That risk assessment is going to be crucial into determining those next steps, which are, as we're going to get to, the messaging, internal, external, all of that stuff.
That's exactly right. And one of the things that I think that people forget is that a lot of crisis today starts and ends on social media.
Right.
And the how big it gets can be determined very quickly by how a brand or company responds in that moment. Oftentimes you can sort of cut down on the longevity of a crisis online if you can get your ducks in a row and respond quickly. If you don't and you sit on something, thinking of you, astronomer, taking us back to one of our favorite,
Right.
I don't know if it's a favorite. Maybe that's the wrong term.
Most talked about,
Most
probably.
talked about. That's much better.
Everyone
Amy.
knows what we're talking about when you say the astronomer CEO situation.
Yes, Coldplay, if we're bringing you back. What we saw there, right? Like that started online and it blew up.
Right.
And it blew up and the narrative got way out of control because astronomer didn't have their ducks in a row. Like I'm quite sure, I don't know, I did not work for astronomer then, nor do I now, but I'm quite sure they didn't have a plan, right? They didn't have a team. I think they probably didn't really assess the risk of the situation very well, and they didn't respond for nearly 48 hours. And by that time, the narrative was all over and out of control. So this is what we mean by it really assessing the situation. And you may not think that it is that big of a deal or that it impacts your business, whatever is going on. But certainly, I think that this case shows us that any type of crisis that involves any of your employees, whether at work or not, and that is gaining national and international attention is not a situation to take lightly.
Right.
So that's the high risk that Amy is talking about. And that's a high risk situation that had literally nothing to do with business operations, anything that happened during business hours. That's one of the most interesting, I think, pieces of living in the world that we live in today, is that social media literally can drive a narrative and a crisis. And if you aren't recognizing that, you can end up as the next astronomer.
Yeah. I think that's one thing is also interesting about this response step that we're sort of in. So you've determined the risk, you're thinking about, okay, what are the next steps? Internal, external messaging, all of that being a part of it. And one stat that we saw was 64% of consumers say that brands should respond on social media as well. It's not the old school way of a press release or an email or a website. Those may all be important as well, but people are looking to social media first and foremost, as we saw in that situation.
And now we're going to move to crafting our message. Because when we're writing the message, it's very important to know who's it coming from and who is it intended for. In crisis, you will almost never be able to please everyone. And understanding that, I think, is really valuable. So you have to focus on your key stakeholders. Who are the most important people during this crisis, and tailor your messaging and your statement and your response to them.
Yeah.
Make it human. Like, one of the things that we see all the time with crisis statements is they sound like they were written by a lawyer. No offense, lawyers. Like, we love you, lawyers. And that can feel very robotic. And robotic doesn't feel good to anyone. So think about the language that you're using in crisis. Like, is this the same language that you use in your normal company communications?
Yeah.
Does it have the same feeling?
Exactly. It needs to sound like the person it's coming from as well. So ahead of time, as you think about that team, going back to where we started with this, knowing who's writing this, but also knowing that they need to approve and that this needs to sound like them. And that's why you have to be ready to move quickly, having that plan in place. But it makes a huge difference in how it comes across, and that empathy that's so important is not necessarily going to come across if you are letting AI write your statements for you. That is where people come in, and that is what's going to move the needle in a crisis situation when the emotions are already high and the stress level is elevated. That has to be a part of the plan for messaging. So like you mentioned, it could come in a number of different ways. There could be email messaging that's needed both for internal teams, external teams, stakeholders, board members may need to know about what's going on. as well as messaging that's going to be said out loud, talking points that you need to prepare for the key executives or executive that is representing the company at this point in time. But tone matters, language matters, and timing matters. As we've discussed, this is all about timing. And that takes us nicely into step 5. Monitor your channels, those email communications. So not just social media channels. That may be what comes to your mind when you think of that, but email communications, just any sort of newsletter, like you said, all of those could be misconstrued if they're sent at the wrong time or happen to mention something that seems insensitive while a crisis might be going on. So first and foremost, adjust any social media plans, any plans for those newsletters or email communications, anything you may have scheduled in the coming days. And from there, you need to have a team in place to monitor social media. So monitoring your own channels, the brand's channels, executive channels, YouTube comments, Google reviews. The list is long of what you should be checking.
Yeah. And that monitoring is not just for 24 hours. It's not just until you get through, okay, well, we put our statement out. Oftentimes, regardless of whether it feels like a crisis has wrapped up or not, there's some lingering that goes on, and you want to make sure that you're aware of it so that you can get ahead of any kind of flare up.
And with that too, you think about monitoring the external comments, more of where the everyday people might be, but media monitoring is of course important there too.
Yes.
Making sure you are actively tracking in PR inbox if someone might be reaching out to you that way. You need a swift response to media as well, because they could quickly turn around and say we reached out for comment but didn't hear back. And as we always say, no comment is a comment. And so you need to be able to respond quickly to media or keep an eye on the media mentions. Make sure you're monitoring local media stations or newspapers just for those mentions of what may be going on, or whether it's related to the crisis or adjacent. It can help you determine how you might be responding in those situations as well.
Okay, so let's wrap it up. Let's do our key takeaways. First, the first 24 hours defines the outcome of the crisis. Have a plan, be ready to go.
Yeah, second, being prepared leads to fast and effective action. So be prepared.
The third step is to make sure you assess the situation before you respond. Responding quickly is really important, and you only have one chance to respond to a crisis. So you need to make sure that you're doing it the right way the first time.
And adjust that response based on the level of risk. We talked about low risk, medium risk, and that essential high risk situations. Make sure you're adjusting your response based on where that's at.
And then don't forget to monitor. Monitor the situation long after you've put out that statement or you feel like things have died down. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it. Let's get
Okay.
started.
It's just like one take wonder this.
That would be impressive.
All right, ready?